Alexander Feil, thanks for being here with us today. You are the founder of Fieldbots, a company that manages autonomous cleaning robots. So tell us, how did you started your career in the cleaning industry?
Oh, it's a long story. Thanks for having me. We started building apps when the smartphones came out, and then we realized, there are a lot of people out in the field, facility management industry, and they have to transport information back to headquarters or like the other way around. So that's how we got into apps and building clouds. And then over time, we realized there are so many different needs for digitalizing the industry. So for example, tools are not connected, so we had to connect tools, or like the first robots came up with mowing robots. And so we just kept building and building as a digital agency. And I don't know, like the first customers were in facility management. They were quite innovative. And then we just stick with the industry, because like once you learn that, it's not a digital knowledge, it's more like an industry knowledge and what can I do with it. And that's where we eventually ended up. And I'm really happy about it, because there's a lot to do in our industry.
Yeah. So robots and AI integration in the cleaning industry will be at the center of discussion at our next event, Forum Facility. In your experience, what are the main benefits of introducing robots in the cleaning industry, and how can company effectively measure the return on investment?
I do believe our industry will change because the whole environment changes. So there are like so many new buildings that are about to be built in all kinds of regions of the world. They are like buildings we've never seen before that are not even built for humans, but for data centers, for example, or dark factories. So there's a lot of like movement around us. So naturally, we have to adapt. And I think like one of the adaptations we can see in other industries is robotics. So we as an industry have to figure out like what's our answer, like what's our vision of like doing this. So I do believe that we can automate tasks that are really tedious, that are things that are like an afterthought right now, that are probably not the task a human wants to do in future. Like for example, the classic floor cleaning, that's where we are in cleaning robotics right now. And we can focus on the more difficult tasks. For example, like at this forum facility in Bologna, discussing where do we have to go next. We have to come up with integration concepts like building and services working together, for example. So I think like it will free a lot of like headspace for the more difficult tasks we have to solve.
Okay, that's great. And what role does robots play beyond automation, for example, in predictive maintenance or optimization?
I see a robot as like a physical thing that's able to navigate the real world and has a lot of sensors. Just like we humans, we see so many things. When a cleaner goes through a room, he or she is not just cleaning. He sees or she sees things like there's like, I don't know, a plant that has to be watered. There's like something wrong that has to be fixed, for example. There were a lot of people in here. There weren't a lot of people in here. Air quality. There are so many things as humans we perceive without even noticing it, because it's so natural to us. And it's the same thing with robots. While they're probably delivering like a special task, like cleaning the floor, for example, they sense the environment. And so if we talk about preemptive maintenance or predictive patterns or AI, everything is based on data. And these robots are also there with their sensors to collect the data that we can make clever assumptions and think about, okay, what has to be done in this building to deliver a better service, for example. So robots are more than just a task solver. They are also our like digital eyes in the building. I'm not necessarily refer to cameras, but all kinds of sensors that help us understand what's happening in the building.
Okay, and in which type of facility are cleaning robots most widely used today?
That's really interesting, because like the answer is different per region. So we launched biggestfleet.com to just learn like where are the fleets and what sort of fleets are there. And then, for example, in Scandinavia, we have them in a lot of like public spaces, because in a lot of Scandinavian countries, there's in every village or in every smaller city, there's like a building where there's like maybe a school and the kindergarten, maybe the police station and the mayor's office, and they use it there because Scandinavia somehow is like at the forefront of automating in these places. It's the public space that's being pushed. In the UK, based on the biggest fleet ranking and what I see in the data of our fleet management, it's on the hospitality end because UK dropped out of the European Union. There's like a labor shortage that's massive, and so there's a lot of rooms to clean, and they have to solve this problem. They have to tackle it, and they try to tackle it with robots. In the German-speaking countries, for example, we see like the highest adoption in retail. Although retail in Europe is way smaller than the big retail in the US, for example. So it's like smaller machines, but still scrubbers, and in these retail outlets where I see the most. Right now, the interesting question is, will it go more to the south? So are we see a lot of adoption over the next years in, France, Italy, Spain, Portugal? Or is it going eastern, like because we have like Poland and Czech Republic and these countries that are very tech savvy, and maybe robotics is going into this. In Asia, for example, that we as Europeans perceive as very open to technology. There are like some closed markets. So we have China, which works totally different from everything else we know in Asia. We have a very specific Korean and Japanese market. They are more coming from a service robotics inroad, which means like delivery robots in restaurants, for example. Asians thought like, oh, this is great, we roll this out internationally, and then they realized, well, not everybody in Europe or in the US likes to get their food brought by a robot. And so a lot of cases in Asia beyond China, Japan, and Korea are still these pilots or these ambassadors for like a modern country. So you see some robots roaming around in Southeast Asia and Singapore, mainly at airports, for example, also in India, because this is a touch point for tourists flying in or visitors flying. So we haven't really seen out a lot of like big fleets, the biggest fleet for these markets, although there are also some smaller success stories. In the US and North America, on the other end, it's the big machines. It's probably coming from Tenon, because Tenon was really present there. They started with like the big machines and putting some automation in it. And then we're talking the Walmarts and the big retail chains and lots of square meters, or as I have to say, square feet in this case. So it's super diverse, from like the smallest robot possible to the biggest machine possible. We also see that the fleets aren't really diverse right now. So some building service contractors, some end customers are betting on small robots, some are betting on big, but nobody has rolled this out over all the different segments of our industry and uses the different sizes and different brands of robots for all these scenarios at once. You picked one, you learned about it, and then you focus on like rolling it out for that specific segment. And so there's a lot of stories to be told, I think, in the next years to come while watching what's happening with these fleets.
Right. In your experience, are clients asking for robots solutions, or is the demand driven by service providers company?
I personally, with Fieldbots, see coming from both ends. End customers usually start pushing it or start pushing their service contractors when they have scaling issues. So for example, if you were a fast-growing company and you build office building after office building, you don't necessarily have a service contractor on hand that can scale with you. So then you're looking at options. You realize automation is probably only possible right now with floor cleaning. Floor cleaning might be 10%, 20% of my cleaning concept, but anyway, I can take that off the plate of my service contractor so they can focus on delivering what I need them to deliver because I can't automate it, for example. So that's that push beyond pilots from end customers. Building service contractors, there are some that looked into it many years ago, and they came to the conclusion robotics is not there yet, so no, not worth looking into it. things are moving really fast. So if you looked into it 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and you came to the conclusion this will never work, have another look at it. Then we have the ones in the piloting stage. I think like most of the service contractors are right now in the piloting stage, where they just try to figure out like how can we use it, but particularly how can we make it part of our product offering? How can we put this into sales processes, into like the daily service delivery? And we only see a very, very rare few that actually already are beyond the piloting stage and start rolling it out. There are some names, and it's very interesting for us to learn from them and learn with them, because like the big pack will come and will face the same questions. But for now, I would say 50-50 between corporates or like fleet owners and fleets ran by service contractors.
Should we think of robots as simply another tool, or are they fundamentally changing the cleaning industry?
I think they're both. They're a tool, and we have to learn how to use it. But on the other hand, like as every new tool we develop or invented in the past, it has like implications on so many different things. So definitely both.
Okay, and new technologies sometimes are perceived as a threat, and in this case, the threat is linked to human labor. So, do you think robots will replace humans, or are they helping address workforce shortage?
So we talked about that these tools or this robotic tool will have, changes as a consequence. So if you perceive a change as a threat, it definitely is a threat, because it will change a lot of things including human labor. So I do believe there are so many new buildings to clean, and there's so much work left to do right now because we don't have enough people, that robots will take these things over first. But it gives us time. It gives us time to focus on things robots can't do. And I'm sure there's like a lot for us to do robots can't do in future. So maybe we also can see it as an opportunity to finally get pushed into a direction where we think about like how do we have to change, how do we have to change our organizations, our processes, to make sure there's like enough to do for everybody, including robots.
And do you think cleaning staff, cleaning manager will have to learn new skills? And what skills should they learn?
Absolutely. I mean, it's a new tool, so I have to figure out how it works. I do think it's one of like the substantial tasks of a manager or a human working at a workplace to learn new things, being open to it. So I think it's a lot of like, maintaining curiosity, trying things out, and figuring out how we can make it work. So it's not robotics, yes or no. It's about like how, and that's our challenge. And I think that's also what makes it interesting for us to work in this industry right now. How can we make this? And this approach to it, I think that's deeply necessary on a manager level, but also on a worker level. Like how do we do this?
What advice would you give to facility managers who are just starting exploring robots?
To start really small, get a machine, and understand it entirely. It's not something you just get on a truck and then set up and you press a button and it works. You really have to understand it. Just like the rest of the business, you understand like how to be hygienic, how the processes have to work, everything HR related. So the same thing with robots. How does this machine work? Why does it act like it acts? So this needs a lot of time. And then once you understood it, like the shortcomings and also the opportunities, find an environment for this machine and your people to actually have success with this machine. So this approach, I think, is the right one to get something to think about.
Which new technology, besides robots, of course, will have the biggest impact on the industry in the near future?
Well, things are moving so fast right now. We talked about these robots as a sensor pack being able to navigate in the physical world. Some even say it's physical AI. So we are collecting a lot of data. So we also touched AI in general, right, based on this data and making these assumptions. So I think this will also have like a big impact on it. But I think the tools don't change our environment. It's actually the environment changing, and we have to figure out like what tools work for us and how to use it. So I'm coming more from that perspective. Let's see what we have to accomplish, see what's in our toolbox, and then choose the right things, be it AI or robots or whatever it is. So I do think the bigger impact comes from the changing environment.
There's one last question I would like to ask you. If you had to challenge one misconception about robots, what would it be?
Well, I'm at trade shows and I'm having a lot of conversations like the one today, so thank you very much for having me. The thing I wish wouldn't be there is strict concepts. You know, everybody approaches me with the strict concepts. Robots are great, robots are bad, robots are efficient, robots don't work at all, robots are a threat, robots are not a threat. And I don't think like in these categories it will help, and I will try my best at Forum facility in Bologna to have this discussion on a deeper level. And there's not a single concept. And I think that's the biggest misconception right now. Everybody has like one strict idea, and it's, you know, it's more complex and more interesting, and there's more variety to it than one concept possibly can hold.
Well, Alexander, thank you very much for this interview, and see you at Forum facility in Bologna.
See you in October.
See you in October. Thanks.